Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 6. Today I'm here with.
Buddy Molina.
All right. Hello, buddy. And you watched the one with Matt. So a lot of stuff I want to talk about kind of backtracks to that.
Sure.
Clearing up your name for what he
Yeah.
said.
Some misconceptions that Mr. Walker had.
Yeah. So you watched it. What are some things you want to bring up first that you kind of like when you're watching it, you're like, you kind of wish you could have said something, but.
Right. Well, I wish I could have said something throughout the whole thing, but probably the biggest thing is Matt was like, oh, Buddy's really smart, but then he says some really. I've never said anything, in my opinion, that is completely radical to the left. I consider myself a moderate, a true independent, because I have beliefs on both sides of the aisle. But what I tell people is I'm more of a traditional liberal, not what a liberal is today.
Do you feel like you are? Do you feel like you fit in with that liberal identity? Because kind of the way I see it is, it's either you're on board with all the liberal ideas, or they label you right wing, no matter what. Like there's no middle to that.
Well, I would say
If you
it depends on what you mean by liberal.
yeah, I
Today in
agree.
2020, liberal to a conservative means you're some SJW crazy. This is my pronoun. This is what I identify as. This is creating something that's way far left, that suppresses the First Amendment, that doesn't allow any room for any other opinion. And that's not what I am. I'm a I like to say I'm a 1990s liberal, right? So like I grew up in the 90s. I'm a liberal that goes to the science. I'm a liberal that is open to debate. I'm a liberal that can listen to Matt's opinions and hear them and try to understand them. But at the end of the day, Matt is a friend of mine. And as long as he's not out hurting people or hurting me, he's a good person in my mind, even if he has different political views than me. So in today's time, I don't consider myself a liberal. I consider myself a logical thinker, a free thinker, who isn't afraid to push boundaries where I feel they need to be pushed.
What do you kind of feel about today's modern day leftism with the whole any opinion different than mine, you're a Nazi, you don't,
Right.
you hate black people and all this other stuff.
Well, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, you have to understand everyone's going to have a different opinion than you. And if you spend your life in an echo chamber with people who only think of the same exact way you do, then you're never going to learn. You're never going to grow. You're never going to experience anything outside of that bubble. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's American. I think it's something that is definitely holding the left, even the moderate left people back, is that these people do suppress, just like you guys made the points of Ben Shapiro and all these people going to college campuses. Why not even let's even go one step below that. He's a political commentator, so his information and his like vibe is already heightened. You can't even get a comedian to go to a college campus anymore. And that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. I'm a strong believer of, and this is one thing that liberals hate, and they will come at me, for saying it, is I don't believe that there is hate speech. I believe that there's First Amendment protected speech of all kinds.
So you agree that, and this is something I agree with, and I bring up this reference to the far extreme of, if someone is an open Nazi per se, they should be allowed to openly express their ideas in a public manner. Just, I would rather, like, I think I said this to Matt before, I would rather have a Nazi that's outspoken and well known than one that's quiet and.
Absolutely. I think it depends on what people think is allotted to them by the First Amendment. If you own a private business, i.e., or not necessarily private, because I think YouTube is traded publicly. I don't know if it is or not.
I think it is, because I know they do censor a lot.
Right. Here's my point to that. Yes, you have the right to do it, but this company also has the right to censor what they put on their thing. Now, YouTube isn't stopping that Nazi from going out onto the street corner and expressing his First Amendment right by saying, kill all the Jews or whatever Nazis say, right?
Yeah.
That's what's protected by the First Amendment right. So there's a line, like I hear conservatives say on YouTube, oh no, they're coming after us. They're doing this. Well, they can. They have the right as a business to censor what they want and to use their platform in any fashion they want. That doesn't mean you don't have the right to go to a public park, to your state capitol, to wherever, and express your views. But you got to be able to deal with the ramifications if people don't like those views, right?
Yeah.
And they have just as much of a right to say all the things that Nazis say, just like I have the right to call them a dumbass and to think they're assholes, right? That's it has to go both ways. And a lot of left people don't like that. A lot of left people do not like that.
What's your opinion on Antifa in particular, with kind of what their whole stance is? For me personally, I heard the group Antifa like here and there maybe a few years ago, but now it seems like that is like a forefront group and kind of like a group walking alongside the Black Lives Matter movement.
Me personally, from my research, I'm not an expert, but from what I've gathered, and I'm pretty objective. If anyone knows me, they know I kind of look at things from both sides. I'm not a fan of Antifa. And let me tell you why. From what I've seen, once again, Antifa has approached people and just wants to shut them up just because they have a different opinion. If you want to go out there and get your mask on and have a shield and be ready to block projectiles and things like that to protect people sharing their opinion, go for it. But when you go out and you got all these YouTubers, and I can't name them by name, I don't know them off the top of my head, but people that just going out showing objective opinions, getting beaten by these guys, getting physically battered, assaulted and battered by these guys. How is that constitutional? How is that American?
And the cops can't do anything because typically if in that neighborhood it's a Democrat watching over the whole area, they're saying pretty much they're telling law enforcement to back off in a way. So
I don't know. That's a strong assumption that they're saying don't protect these people from getting assaulted.
You see in Portland.
Well,
in
I think they're being directed to stay out of ruckuses that they don't deem deadly, which obviously is not working. Someone just died yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to make those assumptions that the Democratic government of that city is directing the police to not save people getting killed. I don't know if that's what they're saying. What I have seen, just not to interrupt, what I have seen is a non-stand. They're letting it happen.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. They're letting people get hurt. They're letting people get attacked. Whoever's obviously the cops don't know what opinion is what, who is what. But they're letting people get hurt, and that's not okay.
Can we both agree that the Democrat-run cities are the ones that more so are encouraging the riots? I feel like you see New York, Portland, Seattle. It's mainly these Democrat cities are the ones that are getting hit the worst because they don't want that.
I wouldn't say it's only because they are Democratic.
I wouldn't say that either. But I think.
But that's what you're insinuating.
I think it's highly more encouraged. So I think they're not.
I don't think it's encouraged. What I mean, or what I think, is that they're not doing anything about it.
I agree with that.
They're letting them do this, and they're staying out of it.
Yeah.
Or they're letting it. They're staying on the fringes.
And I do think they're in a weird position because those are the people. If they're a Democrat, those are the people who are going to be voting for them next term.
But statistically, those age range people don't even vote.
Yeah.
So it's strange. And I'll tell you this. Me and my wife went to protests. We've gone out to Trump protests. And you just talk to people. Hey, in 2016, hey, we're out there protesting. I wasn't protesting. My wife went. She's out there protesting Trump. She's asking people, well, who did you vote? Oh, well, I didn't vote. Then what are you out here protesting for? If you're not willing to play the game, whether you believe the game is rigged or shitty or unorganized, if you don't play, you don't win. So those people, I would argue that those Antifa people, a lot of the young people that are out there, especially in Seattle, they probably didn't even vote at all.
Yeah.
And statistically,
I do think there was a percentage of the riots that when they first started happening, it was in right after George Floyd passed away. And, you see all these, and I feel like there was a percent of people who were just protesting. There's a percent of people who were rioting due to anger. And then there's people there who were rioting to just be there to riot.
Free shit.
Yeah. Like, what does stealing a cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory have to do with George Floyd?
Absolutely.
I
mean, once again, you have to look at context.
Yeah.
You have to look at what is actually going on. And this is one thing that I argue with Matt. I don't believe in making a argument from authority, but it's really hard to understand someone when you don't have that same lived experience.
Yeah.
Matt, though he says I'm Mexican, he says that,
he's white.
And he is. He lives as a white man.
Yeah.
And he lives that way. And he lives in a place, obviously, where we live, or, I don't know about down here in Spanaway, but where Puyallup, wherever Matt lives, it's a white place. And he's never had to deal with the same kind of issues a lot of these people feel. And he even, I don't know if it was him who referenced Martin Luther King or not, but Martin Luther King himself even said, riots are the voice of the voiceless, or riots are the language of the voiceless. Because when you are a people and you feel like, okay, if we do everything right, we're not getting heard. And we go time and time again, we're not being heard. We'll go to city council meetings and we're not being heard. What else there is to do? Oh, then you figure out, if I burn this car, then I get some news media. Then I get to say, get a larger platform. Now, don't get me wrong. Me personally, I don't believe in rioting. I don't believe in that. But I will reference people like Matt, right-wing people, or people who consider themselves patriots. What did their founding fathers do in the beginning of our revolutionary for this country? The Boston Tea Party was a riot. The Boston Tea Party was a group of people who didn't have a voice in their government, who went out and destroyed private property to make a point.
Do you think anything is different from back then to now? Because it seems like Portland's on almost.
They're like almost 60 days.
60 days. At what point is rioting enough? I feel like.
I think, in my opinion, Portland has gone. They've done enough. They've made the point. I don't. Once again, this is my personal opinion. I feel that doing it the right way every day is the way to do it. You can cause a disturbance. I think disturbances are important, i.e., like stopping traffic, right? Causing a disturbance in people's day-to-day lives to focus on this issue that we have, right? We want to stop police brutality. Okay, we're going to go protest at the mayor's office, whoever's, and we're going to stop traffic so they get the attention it needs.
I agree with that. I don't agree with the highway.
Burning the building down is a different story,
yeah.
Right? That, to me, is too far. I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in using violence to make a point. So, in my personal opinion, they've gone way too far, and something needs to happen there to remedy that. Mm-hmm. Now, having a black police, unmarked police people coming and taking people, I don't know if that's the answer, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I do agree that it's out of hand and it needs to stop. And once again, a lot of these folks don't vote. A lot of these folks don't have an idea of what politics are doing and all these things. They just, I'm going to jump on this bandwagon of doing this stuff, So I don't know, but I don't believe that riots are the right way.
What's your opinion on people who hear you say that? And it kind of seems like when you're a part of that modern day leftism, you have to be on board with everything they do and all their beliefs. So with you kind of agreeing with some points and like maybe having reasonable ideas about some of the things they think or do, what's your kind of thoughts on them probably labeling you as like a Nazi or all these other things? You see Ben Shapiro get labeled a Nazi, and he's like the most Jewish guy.
Right. And I'm Jewish, by the way.
And Dave Rubin, he's a gay man.
Yeah.
I'm sure he gets called a homophobe.
Once again, you're never going to agree with everybody, and not everyone's going to like you. And in my personal experience, I've never met a really left-wing person that after having a conversation with me didn't understand where I was coming from. Because I think if you use your language and you use communication that's honest and truthful to yourself, but still respectful, I think people will get you. But if you stand on your soapbox and say, fuck you, you're wrong, there's no connection there.
I do think it depends on where you're at. If you're talking to someone like maybe out of college and you're having a disagreement and you have a civil, like maybe you and Matt, compared to if you go to a protest where they are the majority of the group of thinking, and you go over there and start asking questions and disagreeing, like I feel like they're more likely to shut you off. But not, and it depends on the protest too.
Sure.
If you go to a, an anti-Trump protest, you're gonna get people there who don't want to hear your opposing opinion.
Right. Once again, I'm a person that hasn't been afraid to push those limits. I've asked people to give me specifics. Tell me, show me where it doesn't align with where you believe in. Let's talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's all in your approach. Even if you completely disagree, it's all in the approach. And even in the protests that I've gone to, I've been out holding a sign in the last 6 months and have been correcting people when they're giving false information. Oh, they did this, like for whatever reason, they're giving false information from what happened to George Floyd or what happened to Breonna Taylor. And I've corrected them like, that's not right. Like, you got to give it context. You got to give context where it's due. And I understand that. And unfortunately, we live in a time that we really have to look at everything and really have to do your due diligence to figure out what you're saying before you say, hey, this is what happened, right?
Yeah.
I don't think yelling and screaming in someone's face is the answer.
I agree.
Long story short, that's what I believe.
Kind of like veering a little bit off topic, what is your opinion on the current day college environment with it only really having that left popular opinion?
Sure.
Like I brought it up in Matt. Like I personally tend to lean more towards conservative, but I did not feel ever comfortable sharing those ideas at.
Oh,
I mean,
no,
Pierce College. Pierce College. There's a lot of nice people there. I mean, but still, it's like it seemed and felt like that my opinions weren't welcome or even weren't really wanting to be heard. So and I just kind of kept it to myself and went about my day. And it was fine, but I definitely noticed a lot more of a left-minded opinion there. And I was like,
well, I will tell you, coming from where I come from, I'm from Denver, Colorado. From where I grew up, my ideas to people where I grew up, I'm a far left, as left as you can go person because they're conservative.
I'm sorry, I don't have a gender neutral restroom here.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm as far left as you can go, right? Mm-hmm. But here, living in the greater Seattle area, right? These left-wing people see me as some crazy right-wing person, right? Because that's how skewed things are. I will say, I think people hesitate to express themselves in classrooms. I have seen that. I've witnessed it. I've encouraged people to speak up. I think being a person of color, me being a Chicano, makes it easier for me to express my ideas and my thoughts compared to someone who's white. But I will say this as well. College is what you make it. Yeah. And if you're so fragile and so, what's the word, where you're pliable or to be shaped so easily from just someone's words, then maybe college isn't the place for you. Maybe you need to go find who you are and your identity first and then jump into academia. Because I will say that I've had experience with a handful of teachers at Pierce doing 2 years there that do have a left-wing idea and do say those biases opinions. But you have to, as an independent person, you have to be strong enough with your beliefs to push back on that and say
that's the thing though, is that it's hard, especially if you're talking back to the professor. It's just like these are the people determining whether you pass the class or not.
Well, I guess it is hard for younger people.
Yeah.
I'm old. I'm a non-traditional student. I'm 34 years old. I went back when I was 32. I wasn't afraid to tell. I won't even use their names, but I wasn't afraid to tell a couple professors, yeah, you're saying this from a complete bias. You are, for instance, I'll give you an example. I had a white professor when we were talking about racial issues, social issues. I had a white professor tell me and my friend that was next to me, she's Chicana, she's Mexican American. He told us what we should be offended by. No, you guys should be offended by this because you're minorities. And see, that's where I draw the line. Even if I agree with what we should be offended by, there's no way that liberal person should be telling me how I should feel. Kind of like when I told you, I didn't think you'd lean so right, Yeah. I probably should have never told you that, thinking, just because he's Hispanic, he might have a thing, or just because he dresses a certain way, he might have a certain political idea.
Yeah. I tend to not get offended by a lot of things. Like and that's another point I brought. Like, I don't think of myself as a very politically involved person. I have my opinions.
Sure.
Like if you talk to me about universal health care, I can maybe give you my opinion on like what I know about it, but I haven't researched it enough on both sides to really give a honest, in-depth opinion about it. Sure. I couldn't have a discussion other than just, I feel this way. And that's what I feel like the left is. I feel this way. And there's not really any looking at both sides of the argument there.
No.
But my big thing is freedom of speech. I think, especially you brought up comedians, growing up, me and my friend Jeremy and Eli, I'm Mexican, my friend Jeremy's Asian, my friend Eli's black. We all joked about each other's races all growing up until today.
Absolutely.
If anyone else, if we went into like Seattle and Society Today and we just said a joke that we've been saying for like the last 12 years of our lives, that now is our identity. We cannot say those things anymore.
True. I would say that there's a heightened amount of sensitivity to those kinds of comments, but identity politics are a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
They are it's very hard to not take things personal when you identify as that thing. I.e., if your grandpa was sitting in here and I watched his podcast, I enjoyed it very much. Even though I don't agree with a lot of things he said, I do enjoy seeing a Chicano elder who is making a difference in his community in the best way he sees fit and trying to be positive, right? I liked what he said. But if I was in here and I, said something that was anti-Christian or something like that, it's going to be hard for him not to take it personal because, like he said, God in his mind or Christ in his mind changed his life, saved his life. So it's hard to separate when you're talking about politics, take that passion out of it. So it's hard, right? And when we understand that, but what we have to understand also, because people on the right, and I shouldn't say people, I should say white people, because that's what I truly believe. White people don't like identity politics because we have something that's different that we can almost hold against them. There's a line that you have to be able to draw and say, even though this is what I identify as and this is where I need to be able to separate that from political conversation and understand it from both sides.
Yeah.
I could understand why a white person would be uncomfortable speaking up, like what we were just talking about, sharing their conservative ideas. Why? Because everyone will jump on their shit if they say something wrong. Just like the point you made. You walk into the school with a Bernie hat, you're fine. You walk in with a MAGA hat, it's over. Or MAGA, whatever it's called. I like to say make America gay again, but you know what I mean? You're going to be crucified, right? Like you're going to be shunned and all those things. And in my opinion, there is no room for that. There can't be any room for the way you combat hate speech is not censorship, is more free speech. You need to go and share your opinion.
And I think that's what they're
it
mixing
is.
up is
Exactly.
freedom of speech with hate speech. Like different ideas is just being labeled as hate speech.
And let me reiterate that real quick too. When I said I don't believe there's hate speech, I believe there is hateful speech. Right?
Yes.
I believe that there are things people could say out loud that are meant to hurt your feelings. Like whatever it is, insulting things, whatever it is, things that strike to your core that hurt you. I understand that, and I believe that that's real. But what we all have to understand as Americans is that when you start censoring one thing, where does it end? And I know it's a common thing said online and common thing said in politics is it's a slippery slope, because it is, you know. And you brought up Canada, right?
Yeah.
Canada has legislation against free speech.
Comedians get in trouble all the time.
Absolutely. People who speak out against transgender people have
Jordan Peterson wasn't
Jordan
gonna do.
Peterson has straight legislation that is aimed to suppress free speech. And that's where I draw the line. I cannot get on board with that. And I never will, because I'm a constitutionalist. You know, your grandfather reads the Bible. My religion is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. You need to be able to do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anybody or hurting yourself in some way. And you need to be able to say what you want and express yourself.
And I think there's somewhere where you and I would disagree, but if this was a far left sitting in front of me, I would be labeled as transphobic or whatever. Yeah, I don't fully understand the whole more than two genders, transgenderism and all this other stuff. I don't, you know, but at the same time, you know, I'll still respect you. I'll go by whatever you want to. Like, I have once you're 18 years old, you're an adult. You can identify or do whatever you want to your body, you know? It doesn't affect me in any way. And, you know, even though I don't necessarily agree that there's more than two genders or fully believe that people are mentally in the right mind state, transgenderism has a, like, what, 50% suicide rate? You can argue that it's bullying and whatnot, but, you know, I could be labeled as transphobic and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, like, if someone's transgender and they want to be referred to this, I'll refer to them as that. You know, it's a respect thing. You know, I have no problem with the person. I just don't necessarily agree with the ideology or whatever. But you know, they're living their life. I don't really, you know, it's not affecting me in any way. I don't really care. And I think I mean, I could speak on behalf of the people, conservatives that I know. I would think that a lot of people who think like I do, a lot of conservatives think the same way I do. Ben Shapiro in the same way. Like, he brought up a good point in the way of, like, when it comes to discussing transgenderism or more than two genders, he's gonna, you know, he's not gonna, if the argument will be over if he automatically just refers to that person as what they prefer to be known as, you know? And you saw that within the CNN when they talked about Kate Jenner winning Women of the Year.
Right.
There was that joke, even men are better women than women.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And he said, so when it comes to argument, he'll refer to them as their biological. But when it comes to, like, if they're sitting at dinner, you know, like, what does it matter? What does it matter? Why do I need to be, you know? And and my assumption is, typically, any right-wing person, any kind of conservative, they don't really care. They just don't want this stuff. They just don't want anything implemented onto them. Like, you need to believe this ideology.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
And this is something that I don't stand with these far left. Once again, I'm a true liberal when it comes down to it. I go to the science. Okay? As far as we know, from most recent studies, there are males born genetically, females born genetically, and a very, very minute percent of intersex people born.
Yeah.
Okay? Those three, according to the books, are the only three genders we have. That's not some radical idea. That's not some far right-wing thing. That is the vast majority of the medical field agrees with that.
Then the argument is gender's different than sex.
Okay, that's fine.
I think,
listen, it's all about context, right?
Yeah.
It's all about context. What are we talking about? Are we talking about someone's pronouns? Okay. You want to be called Jill instead of Jack? Fine. Cool. Yeah. But are we talking about legislation saying if I don't call you Jill, I get arrested or I get penalized through the government for not using that? Now there's a different story.
Yeah.
That crosses the line. Once again, you have the right to be called whatever you want and live your life however you want.
Yeah.
But guess what? I have the right to be an asshole and call you what I want as well.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what people need to understand on right and left. It has to go both ways. Left people need to understand that those are American given rights of free speech, and to create legislation against free speech is unconstitutional, and it will forever be unconstitutional. And so we can't allow people to ignore the science. You brought up the suicide rates. You can argue, this is something that I've thought about running for office many times on different levels. And me and my wife talk about it all the time. And this is one of the big things that I feel I will lose running as a Democrat, because I don't believe, and because it's not even necessarily an idea of belief, is I don't follow these left-wing ideology like avenues of transgendered people. I don't think we should be, when it comes to kids.
Oh, dude, that's a big one for me. Don't put your kid on hormone blockers.
Exactly. We cannot allow these parents to make these decisions for these children when their brain isn't even fully formed.
Just because your kid plays with a Barbie doll doesn't mean they want to be a girl.
Exactly. That is science. That is not some crazy Fox News, InfoWars crazy thing. It is science. We are not fully developed till we're around 25, and even then, there's some give and take, right?
Yeah.
If a grown person, adult, feels this is the way they need to go and they want to transition, after they go through some therapy on really getting to know who they are and what they are and decide to do it anyway, do it. But the way we feel today is, oh, you feel like a girl? Get on hormone blockers.
Not only that, if I feel like I'm not identifying as a gender, I'm like, okay, please refer to me as they, them. 5 minutes later, I could be like, okay, now I think I'm a girl. And you have to abide by those rules.
And even though how ridiculous does that sounds, that's what they're saying. That's what they're implying, right? And that's the argument from the right, is like, listen, there's a lot of people that, just like you said, yeah, you want to call yourself whatever, you want to do whatever, cool. But you can't keep changing it over and over and over and over and over again to appeal to what you want to get done in your life, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest argument comes with the big one is the kids, hormone blocking and changing their framework of growth and all those things. I think it's wrong. I don't think there's any science behind it. I don't think there's any I shouldn't say any. There's very little science behind it, and there's very little research behind it.
And then they have those people who raise their kid genderless. I think that just messes a kid up. I think raise them as whatever their gender is, and if they want to decide later on in life,
exactly,
let them
do it. What we need to work on, I think, is a bigger issue. Is we need to help our communities and our society accept people however they want to be. Yeah. That's the bigger issue. If we accepted more people, if we were like, yeah, like, cool, do you, be safe, take care of yourself, be healthy, make sure you're okay. But yeah, live however you want. You want to be called this, you want to be dressed like that. It doesn't matter. If we had more acceptance in that way, then they wouldn't need to transition, right? They wouldn't need to, because they wouldn't have this stigma, this pressure from parents, from their community, from their bubble of people telling them to be something that they're not, right? Maybe if we had that first, then we could go. And then if you wanted to transition, go for it. But I don't get on.
You see sometimes, you see them getting brought up more today than they were before, but people who are transgender or gay, or black even, who maybe have a disagreement or two about whatever the leftist idea is, and they just get attacked. And then they go talk to the more conservative outlets, and they're like, and they realize they're more comfortable. Like you'd be labeled, I think, as more right wing if we're putting to today's standards.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And a good Tim Pool brought this up is a good thing about necessarily the Republican Party in particular. And I wouldn't label myself as a Republican. I don't like that whole you're Democrat or Republican.
Hey, I voted for Bush.
But that Republican Party umbrella has just only gotten bigger because people who maybe are just in the middle don't necessarily adopt all the ideas of the left. They're not welcome to the left. You have to you're either going all in or, you're going to get chastised out.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true in American politics.
Yeah,
I think on the street, yes.
I think
in society and colleges, you're right. But within the framework of our government and how they work, I don't think you need to believe and buy into all kinds of this crazy left-hand stuff, just like you don't need to buy into all this crazy right-hand stuff to be a Republican. I think there's more tolerance, quote unquote, within our government than there is on college campuses, 100%.
Yeah.
Because just the point you're making, when you mention anything about being opposed, right, to this ideological avenue of thought, you're going to get chastised. You're going to get ridiculed. You're going to get looked at.
And Matt right up, it's almost like a cult. It's just like you have these set mindset, and if you go against it, you're not welcome. It's
yeah, but Matt uses the context once again, not out of experience. I mean, I can say the same thing about your grandfather and Matt as Christians.
Yeah.
I can say the same thing. You're an ideological group who believes in this one thing. You're looking for eternal life, and this is your goal, to make it to heaven. And to get to heaven, you have to do XYZ, or you have to live XYZ style. Your best bet to live like this.
Yeah.
I think you made the greatest point with your grandfather when you said, okay, well, what if someone was doing really bad and this person from a mosque came to him and said, hey, you need to change your life and you need to do better. And that person was like, you know what, you're right. And changed his life to be a Muslim.
Yeah.
Where do they lie in it, right? Religion aside, there is no framework that you have to just to be a good person.
Yeah,
you just got to be a good person. And just like your grandpa said, well, if there's nothing at the end and you did it, then I didn't lose anything out. But if I didn't do it and I get to the steps and there's, Jesus saying, well, you didn't do this and this and that. Do we really think that this God who's supposed to be all loving and all knowing is going to look at your life and be like, well, Victor, you were generous, you were kind, you were nice to people, you did your best to help people around you, but you didn't pray. You didn't read the Bible. I'm going to send you to hell for eternity. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I
think being a good person is being a good person, and those ideas don't necessarily make you better or less than anyone else. But it's just the point, and I think I got a little off topic there, but I think it's just the point of condemning others. That's where I draw the line is, hey, you want to be a Christian? Be a Christian. If you want to be a Muslim, be a Muslim. Whatever it is that you believe in. But don't tell me that I'm going to be less than or I'm going to be condemned because I don't believe in what you believe in.
What is your opinion about, I think the Christian religion in particular is really brought out within the government. What's your opinion on that? My friend Gage, I don't remember, he's not Christian, something different, but he says he agrees with it in the sense that Christian ideologies is what he thinks is a good thing to look up to. Don't kill, don't steal, all these other things. Like, granted, those things can be presented without the context of a religion attached to it, but he thinks that being presented is a good thing for people to look up to, a good stance per se.
Well, I think he's a little misinformed by thinking that morals are somehow connected to a religion or to some kind of higher power. Yeah. You can go look at some Aborigine people or people in the Amazon who have never heard what a Christian is, who have never heard who Jesus is, or what God is to them, outside a Christian God or Western God, whatever you want to call it, who have never heard that, but they know, hey, I shouldn't kill my neighbor.
Yeah.
Hey, I shouldn't steal my neighbor's goat or whatever it is, right? Are they somehow, where do we explain that, right?
Yeah.
I think morals and doing the right thing is a human thing. If you look at a periodic table, all those elements, every single one of those elements are on Earth. And guess where else? Every single one, even into the minute amount, guess where else it is? It's in people. Every single bit of the periodic table is in humans. And if you think that we're not connected somehow to the earth, to each other, in more than just, like we're both Mexican,
Yeah.
I think on a total cellular level, we are connected as people. And I think people get confused and try to throw in religion because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel, listen, I don't know what's going to happen when we die. I don't know. Yeah. And I don't need to know. All I need to know is that this is the life I'm given. And on average, it's around 75 years old or whatever it is right now, whatever the average is. And all I can do is be the best person within that time frame. And if something happens afterwards, we'll find out when we get there. But I think being a good person and aiming towards that is probably more important than how many times have I prayed, how many times have I tithed.
I do think it's, and I don't remember who I brought this up to, but I think there's that good saying of just like, someone who's a devout atheist is just as someone who's a devout atheist is just as crazy as someone who's a devout Christian. Like if you compare the two, they both have the same way of thinking, just different, opposite sides.
If I had to be put in a label, which I don't like to be, I would say that I'm an agnostic person. I'm not saying there isn't some divine creator. Now, in my opinion, logically it doesn't point that way, but I can't zero it out. It's not 100%, just like the opposite idea is not 100%, right?
Yeah.
So I don't care about things that, one, I can't control, and two, I won't ever come to grips with. I won't ever have the answer.
Yeah.
All I know is that we're out here. The elements that are in the earth are in me and in the universe. Somehow we're connected. Is that because of God or a creator? I don't know. Is that because of what happened at the Big Bang and live cellular organism grew and went beyond that? I don't know. We won't ever have the answers. Now, logically, I would say it's the latter. It would point more towards that because, once again, there's more physical evidence that points towards evolution, in my opinion, than there does to all of us coming from two human beings, Adam and Eve, which obviously does not make sense, or the entire earth being flooded and the earth being repopulated by Noah's children again.
I think my biggest discrepancy with the Bible is that they made the snake bad, because I think there's some good snakes. I really want a snake. Snakes are cool.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff in the Bible, but like you said, if we can just take the stuff that's good, why isn't that okay?
Yeah.
That's a problem with Christians.
I don't know where I land in that sense, because like if you put the Christian forefront as America, like USA, American Christian, you put that all in the same kind of thing. It's just like, well, America's also this place where you can have freedom of ideas, freedom of expression. Why are we forefronting this one when, if you can be in America and you could express all forms of, and it's weird to express one religion compared to someone else. It's just a weird area. I don't know where I necessarily land on that in particular.
Well, I mean, we don't have an official religion, obviously, for a reason. I think a lot of people don't understand history, and they don't understand what our forefathers, or their forefathers, I should say, really thought about religion. I mean, the man who wrote the Declaration of Independence rewrote the Bible. You know, Thomas Jefferson rewrote the Bible and took out all the miracles because he deemed those unlikely. You know what I mean? He wasn't saying there wasn't a God. He wasn't saying that we might not have a divine creator. And he wasn't saying that Jesus wasn't a cool cat. You know what I mean? What he took out was all the stuff that he thought, well, the talking donkey probably didn't happen, right? He took out a lot of stuff. Do people ever talk about that? Do right-wing people ever talk about our forefathers rewriting the Bible, which is considered blasphemy, right, within the religion? Benjamin Franklin himself, he said, lighthouses are more useful than churches. You know, those are the things that people need to forget. When it comes to America, we don't have a national religion for a reason. And we can take the "in God we trust" with a grain of salt. It doesn't mean anything more than what it's written on the paper for, right? And the Pledge of Allegiance, too, people get on that, you know, one nation under God. Whoop-de-doo. Who's God? It doesn't ever say. What God are we referring to? You know, we can be talking about anything. I think when it comes down to it, if you look at the Constitution, just like you said, we have the right to practice whatever faith, whatever religion we want. Where I personally draw the line is, like I said before, is condemning others for not believing what you believe in.
Yeah.
That's where we need to stop it, and that's where it needs to stop on both sides of the aisle. You know what I mean?
I do think we're in this really heightened state, especially today. And I do think with the election coming up, it's going to be incredibly interesting. I think, in particular, I guess I should ask you first. Who are you particularly more keen to voting for?
I'm going to vote for Biden.
Biden?
Oh yeah, and I know you and Matt talked about this, and we have to understand people need to stop looking at the presidency as a rom-com, right? We're never going to find Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. We're never going to have anyone who fits every single thing we believe in, every single thing that we like, that we enjoy, all those things. We're never going to find that, and it's impossible. We need to look at the election like public transportation. If I need to take a bus somewhere, you know, public transportation is not like taxis, right? When you get in a taxi, you tell them, hey, I need to go to 123 East whatever street. Mm-hmm. They take you right there, right? Public transportation, if anyone's ever rode a bus before, they know. If you went and told the bus driver, hey, go ahead and drop me off at this address, the bus driver would probably kick you off the bus or tell you to fuck off or something, right? Public transportation gets you as close to your destination as possible. So when you look at that map and you're saying, oh, I need to get to this place, but this bus line is the closest one and it's still 2 miles away from where I need to go, what do? You have to ride that bus. I think, and I said this in 2016, Hillary Clinton was the very first Democrat I ever voted for. I was always on the right hand of things because in my younger years, in my opinion, I was a selfish voter. I voted for my own personal interest in my own personal, mostly financial gain, right? In my opinion, back then, voting Republican put more money in my pocket, which I understood is a good thing in some ways and a bad things. As I've gotten older and I've learned and I've grown more, I can put aside some of my own personal things and utilize my vote to help more people. And that's what I'm willing to do with Biden and Harris.
Do you think, though, that Biden... I don't know. I just don't think Biden's fit to be in any position of any job occupation. I just think they're going to use him primarily as like, hey, we wrote up this bill, just sign it. And
but what is your backing to that? This is what I argue.
The video, like all the videos
are videos. People, I can show you guys tons of videos where Trump says something stupid, fumbles over his words, reads a word. He said Yosemite instead of Yosemite. Like stupid shit.
Yeah.
There's plenty of videos where people say stupid shit that doesn't have anything to do with their cognition, that doesn't have anything to do with their understanding or leadership skills. If you showed me, we're going to say proof, if you showed me evidence that is showing that he is unable to cognitively understand people and to get a job done, I would agree with you. But until then, he's willing to put together a team, because that's the thing that people don't. Matt and other people keep saying, "Oh, he's just going to be a what is it called? What is it when you're an actor but you're just in the background or whatever?
An extra?
He's just going to be an extra in this crazy scene, right? That's what the RNC people say. He's going to be an extra in this socialist movie, right? That's not true. When you're a true leader, just like in a very small form, I'm not comparing myself to the president, but just like with me in the OSL, I did my best to put together a team of people that can get the job done in the best way. I'm not the best at everything. You're not the best at everything, but you have skills that I don't have. So I can use you to, we could use each other to help elevate where we need to go or get to a destination.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between these two. Trump doesn't believe in anything but himself. All these people, right-wing people, think that he is so for them and he's so for the poor people. He's so for you. He doesn't give a shit about anything but Donald J. Trump.
I do think he's changed a bit from when he first ran 2016 till now. He's definitely not, as vocal as he was then.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's backed up a bit. But I do think personally, I'm most likely going to be voting for Trump. Just because I don't necessarily align with the way I look at it is, Democrats in a way have been moving more towards progressive, and with, Joe Biden did not condemn or really speak out. A lot of things you're seeing from the Democrats right now is peaceful protests. You're seeing that all over, and then you look at what's actually going on there, and it's just riots. There's people,
but that's incorrect as well. Well, there are still protests.
There are
happening.
peaceful. There are peaceful protests. That is correct. But
is the I
didn't watch the RNC or the DNC,
no,
so I can't really speak on those.
NRA, right? The National Rifle Association. Are they responsible for every single person who kills someone with a gun?
No.
Okay. Right there. So are these people who are organizing peaceful protests in these cities that you deem democratic, whatever, left wing, are the people who organize these peaceful protests, are they responsible for every single person looting?
No,
for every single person causing ruckus? Of course not.
And that's what I think about the Black Lives Matter movement in particular. I think there's a pocket of people
that's a different,
there's a pocket of people who, believe in black voices, they need to be heard and all this other stuff. And then there's other people who just kind of, start riots and all this other stuff. The radical leftist idea, I think those are two separate, it's a big group, but with different,
and I think you guys talked about it more, just because going off of what you guys said, or what you said, I think you guys talked about it with Matt. There's a big difference between believing Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter organization.
Yeah.
Right? When you came and interviewed us when we did our small protest in Puyallup, I distinctly and very intentionally said, I do not represent the Black Lives Matter organization, and I am not a part of the Black Lives Matter organization. Because, once again, something me and Matt crossed the aisle about is we agree that Marxists and communists are not the answer to what these organizations should be. And their leaders and organizers of the Black Lives Matter movement organization have openly expressed that they are trained Marxists. That they are. Now, once again, those two women who did start it, who are vocally out Marxists, I don't know how much they have to do with the Black Lives Matter movement now, but I do know they started it. And I am not in any way, shape, or form for communist or sharing of wealth distribution. I think we need to figure out more how to bring the bottom 99% up instead of bringing the 1% down.
Jordan Peterson, did you ever watch that where he constructively talks about capitalism in a way? He says it's a structure that needs to work. When you have a 1% that owns, it can get out of line.
Sure.
The 1% can own so much that it disproportionately destroys the other 99%.
Sure.
So you need to regulate that to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent. Absolutely. Yeah. I believe that. But, just for instance, all these different things, defunding the police or redistribution of wealth and yada, yada, yada. you know what? If we restructured what money we already have, the trillions of dollars we spend on military, the whatever amount we spend wherever, and reallocated it in special ways, we could get all the things we want done, right? But it's about these politicians, lower level, even local, that are deciding, we're not going to spend it that way. We're going to spend it this way. Or we're not going to do it this way. We're going to do it that way. And that's the problem, is taking Jeff Bezos's money. Sure, that's a quick fix it. But why would you give anybody money who can't control a budget? Why would you give someone money if you know they're so unorganized and unreliable in money allocation? Why would you give them any of your money, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the answer is taking from billionaires. All the billionaires shouldn't exist. Why not? Capitalism is what projected our country higher than any other country in the world and in world history. On top of that, slavery, we cannot ignore that. And I know Matt gets all, worked up because we bring it up, but that's true. We would not be sitting where we are now without slavery. That projected us, 400 years of slavery projected us to be the wealthiest country in the world for many, 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 many years. And even though now we might not be the wealthiest, but we are the most influential, we're the most powerful. What we tend to create, even in the minor side with pop culture, we are the top dog. And I'm very, once again, another thing that doesn't line up with the left side is I am very patriotic in the sense I'm proud to be an American. I'm glad I'm from this country. I'm actually indigenous to this continent, so that makes sense that I'm part of this country. But also on top of that, I'm not afraid to recognize that the founding fathers weren't really talking about black or brown people when they wrote that Constitution. But now we have to understand that it is considering us and we are part of the fold. And so you have to be able to reconcile both, right?
Yeah. You
have to be able to reconcile both of those ideas. It wasn't written for us, but we're in it now. And we got to utilize it to our best ability.
Where do you kind of stand then within the Black Lives Matter movement in particular? The way I think of it is kind of like what I said. I think there's different pockets of people who believe probably different things. Because I have some conservative friends who posted the black square on Instagram. I didn't do that, but
I didn't do
that. I saw it. And I don't know. I think, it would just kind of where do you align within the...
Well, once again, it depends what we're talking about.
I agree with the statement. I think a lot of people agree with that statement.
Let's rephrase it, right? I value black lives. We don't have to say Black Lives Matter. We value black lives. What I'm saying to it, and I wholeheartedly support people who are tired of seeing people get gunned down in the streets.
Yes.
Okay. But we have to focus on what we're talking about. I didn't put a black square because just like you said, what does that mean? Putting up a black square, is that all we're doing? Is that all you have to do to be a good ally for the black community?
There was a funny joke when the Florida shooting happened and they had the 13-minute walkout. Oh, yeah. Someone was all like, "What? They're only worth one. Each live was only worth 1 minute of your 1 minute of your life."
Exactly. And so that, to me, it's stupid. I don't buy into that stuff. And if you looked at my social media, I'm only putting stuff out there when I'm willing to go do the stuff I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. If you look at the last month or so of my stuff, I haven't put anything because I've been too busy. I haven't been able to organize anything. I wasn't putting anything that I wasn't backing up with action. But with that said, with what your question is, with the Black Lives Matter, it depends on what faction we're talking about. If we're talking about police brutality, then absolutely we need to understand that the police are a out of control organization, that their unions have all the power. And a lot of people blame mayors, Democratic mayors. They blame Republican people who control. You know who has the real power of the police? The freaking police union. That's who has the real power. They're really deciding what is going on and what's happening when it comes to police departments. If we're talking about that, then yes, I wholeheartedly support it. And we can talk about that in a second and talk about all the points about police brutality. But then when it comes to things I've seen with the Black Lives Matter, it's like, oh no.
Abolish the police?
Well, not abolish, police aside. I've seen a lot of stuff with Black Lives Matter with, oh no, go stop shopping there, go shop at this black owned business. So now you get to tell me where I want to get my products, where I want to spend my money. Why should I have to go spend my money out of a black owned store if I can get it somewhere else that I like better or cheaper or whatever the case may be? Why is it now that, oh, if I don't shop there, you better watch out, right?
Yeah.
That's where I draw the line. You can't be a totalitarian. What's the word I'm looking at? You know what I mean? You can't be that authority figure that says, nope, you better do this or not. It's just like everything else we talked about. Oh, you have a different opinion about transgenders. Nope, you better watch out. Yeah, we're going to come at you. We're going to cancel culture. We're going to cancel you, right?
Are you going to tune into CancelCon?
Oh God, I don't even know. Like, I've only heard a little bit about it, but I don't really know.
I'm going to watch that. Yeah. But back on to police in particular. I'm with Back to Blue. I do think there should be police reform, though. I think it should be harder to be a cop, and I think there should be more training for it. With that being said, though, I can see both sides, per se. I can, I have a friend who's all for Black Lives Matter and whatnot, and him and I talked about this. He brought up the point. I said, when you're a police officer and you're walking up to a car, you pull someone over and you're walking up to a car door, you have no idea what's going to come down when they roll down that window. It could be a barrel of a gun, or it could just be someone giving you their driver's license and whatnot. Sure. You don't know. So you're always in this weird kind of unhinged state, especially when you have to knock on a door or break into a house, those type of situations. Mm-hmm. There's always that thing in the back of your mind. There could be a gun pointed towards me the moment I walk through this door, the moment this window rolls down. And his response was, well, they're in that position, they're in that occupation, they should know how to deal with something like that. Mm-hmm. I agree with that to an extent, but also, like, you see people who are at war, they had the same thing going on with them, is they don't know, granted different mm-hmm. You're going to war for the sake of going to war. As a police officer, there could be different outcomes in that. But also, with that being said, I don't know if turning off that switch in your head of, oh, there might be a gun, down this corner, but who knows? I don't want to accidentally, make the wrong call. I'm just going to put my gun away and just walk over there. Is that the right thing to do compared to, defending yourself?
I think, once again, we grant officers the authority to make these decisions. Now, whether you think they are undertrained, incompetent, and militarized is a different story, which I believe all three of those are true. What I think the point people keep forgetting about is, it's not the point. I understand that when that window goes down, that something could happen bad. What we want, as in I say people who want police reform and who I'm against blue lives BS, all that blue lives matter.
I'm a Back to Blue.
Bullshit,
I'm not sure about the
Back to Blue, whatever. I say blue lives murder a lot. I don't support the police. And why? Because in my experience, I don't have that comfort of supporting the police. I've seen too many police lie. I've seen too many police break the law themselves. I've seen too many police try to do things that they're supposed to uphold, right? The hypocrisy is out of control. But to your point, when you're walking up to the thing, they're not asking to drop those. I don't think we're asking for those police officers to drop that caution. Of course, there's bad people in the world that want to do bad things and hurt people. You need to be prepared and mindful enough to know. The point that needs to change is the actions you're taking to that person when you roll that window down, when they're brown or black and when they're white. And that's the flat out truth.
Do you think a respect aspect plays a part?
What do I need to respect anyone for?
Well, it's just
if I'm not doing anything unlawful, right?
Yeah.
And they're giving me I don't understand this whole thing about, oh, you need to respect it. There's no law that says I have to listen to a cop if I'm not doing anything unlawful.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
With that. Yeah.
There's no law to that. If those cops get their little feelings hurt, as you guys say, facts don't care about your feelings, right, Ben Shapiro? Then they need to be able to handle someone saying, fuck you, you fucking pig, you piece of shit. They need to be able to handle all those things. What I'm looking for is equality in the treatment of the people they interact with. And one, you say, oh, when they walk up to that car window, we don't know. Okay, well, why were they getting pulled over in the first place? Let's talk about that. Why are they getting pulled over in the first place? Me personally, I'm, once again, up here, it's a little different because it's more diverse in Washington than it is in Colorado. When you're where I'm from, you're either white or you're Mexican. I mean, that's just the majority of that. There's a very small black community. There's a very small Asian community. But where I grew up, up here, I'm white passing, but down there, they know I'm brown. Or up here, they might not think I'm white, but they don't know what I am, right? So it hasn't been such an issue here. But growing up where I'm from and people I hung out with and maybe even the cars I drove were something, you know, if you got rims on your car, that was something to say. You need to be able to be treated the same way a person in a minivan, a white person in a minivan is treated. And that's the problem with the police. Their interactions with people of color are drastically different than they are with white people. And those are the things that are the truth. The judicial system and policing in this country. And once again, this is not some radical idea. This is not some crazy InfoWars. I say InfoWars because
I do like it. I think. Okay, we'll talk about InfoWars in a second. We'll talk about that.
It's not some crazy idea. The numbers are there. Okay. Mm-hmm. The easiest way that I put people to it is look at sentencing rates in the judicial. You could go to your local judicial thing and look at sentencing rates. You got John Doe here, John Doe here. One is white, has similar crimes, similar record from a similar neighborhood. This one's black, similar crime, similar record, similar neighborhood. The black or brown person is far more likely to get a higher sentence, to get harsher sentencing, and to not get bail just being brown or black compared to whites. That is the truth. There's data, loads and loads and loads of data behind that. So that's not some kind of pulling the race card, pulling whatever.
Yeah.
With that said, with the cops, the interactions, if they're already assuming this person, because they're black or brown, is a threat, how are they going to be able to, if they're already getting themselves in that mindset, how are they going to be able to treat them fairly? You know? And if these cops are willing to break the law, which is civil rights, people's rights to travel, all those things, they're pulling people over for no reason, which I have been pulled over for absolutely no reason. That's where you draw the line, and that's where we need reform.
So I'm seeing a little bit of conflicting ideas here in a way. So you have all that, but then you're voting for Biden and Kamala.
Right. You could bring up Kamala's history about this and about how she did things and locked up people for marijuana and all those things. I totally get that. Once again, to reiterate, it's not about finding Mr. Perfect.
I understand. It's not like
it's about believing that these people will put together a team that will be a better benefit to the overall community, to the overall country, instead of this totalitarian person, Mr. Donald Trump, who believes he knows everything and he is the smartest man alive and doesn't really care about who he surrounds him with. Clearly, most of his people are going to jail or getting pardoned by him or quitting, getting fired. He doesn't know how to run a team, right? He doesn't know how to run a community. This is my opinion. I'm not trying to change your mind.
I understand.
I'm giving you the reasons why I'm going to vote for Biden and Harris. Yeah. Once again, those things will change, dude. Those are small potatoes, as they say.
Yeah.
Those things will change. I can talk trash a million times over about every politician. Yeah. From all the way down to the smallest local politician, right? So that's no point. That doesn't mean that cops don't need reform. That doesn't mean any of that. That means, just like you said, cops If we require our barbers to have more training than police officers who have the authority to make a decision to take your life, we have a fucking problem, right? If a plumber needs more certification time, if an electrician needs more certification time to go and get a license from the state to work as an electrician, then this person who has a firearm who can take your life, people, you need to understand, taking your life dead, if we're giving them that authority, and I'm not saying we shouldn't give them that authority, I'm saying if we are, we need to change something. We absolutely need to change something and root out these ones. And I guarantee you, if we make the process harder to become a cop, we'll lose a lot more bad cops than good cops.
That's where I say I agree with police reform with making it harder to be a cop and requiring more training. Joe Rogan brought up a point, like he has people who come in, I don't know what he did, martial arts.
Yeah, it's jiu-jitsu.
Cops.
Who don't know anything.
Yeah, who don't know anything about self-defense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do think there needs to be some type of
not
reform.
even self-defense, but like grappling to subdue somebody without killing them, right?
Yeah.
Subdue them, get them down, hold them, even, you know what I mean? Do those things. Hey, I'd much rather have if I'm resisting, or if I'm a criminal and I'm resisting arrest, I'd much rather have my arm broken by a jujitsu hold than to be shot and killed, right?
Yeah,
I'd much rather have a broken arm than be dead, right?
Yeah.
We absolutely need that.
Yeah, and I agree. Now, switching tones a bit, InfoWars. What is your opinion about InfoWars?
I'm not saying everything they say is wrong. What I'm saying is,
I think they say a fact, but then they say something.
Yeah, they say a lot of like crazy outlandish
I think Owen
stuff.
Schroyer is the more.
He's the one with the beard, right?
Yeah. He's the more contained, reasonable one. Alex Jones, I think.
No, more reasonable. I would say more reasonable than.
I think Alex Jones is the selling point in a way. Like he has the similar ideas, but he's the one that gets people on the website. He's the one who gets people watching. Yeah. He's the character,
Yeah. He's an entertainer.
Owen Schroyer is the one who.
Is out on the street, right?
Yeah.
He does the interviews.
Yeah. I like InfoWars. I think
I like InfoWars because it's entertaining. I don't go to them for my, I need the facts on a news story. That's my bread and butter. No, I go to them.
I don't think anybody should
laugh.
Look at one particular source.
I think it's hilarious when they bring up all these points with these liberals on the street, right? Like, so why don't you like Trump? Cricket. It's like, you're at an anti-Trump rally. Please tell us why you don't like him, Mike. They have no answer. I think that's hilarious and stupid, right? I can see both sides. But things like, this is one big thing that's going to drive Matt up the wall and a lot of people up the wall, is there is no reverse racism. I am sorry. And he cited the definition. Yes, the definition of the action of racism is true, that you think you're better than someone from their skin color. But racism itself, the system requires a hierarchy. You need to be part. It's not necessarily minority. It's you need to be part of the power structure to really make a difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I guess another point to that is Terry Crews brought up, and this was like a month ago, where he brought up just putting the Black Lives Matter in question. He's like, hey, let's just make sure this doesn't turn into Black Power.
I think he's like Black Lives Matter more, or only Black Lives Matter or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And he got a bunch of criticism for that, just for even questioning the movement. Do you think in some aspects, like within those pockets of group within the people who follow the Black Lives Matter movement, that is a prominent one as well?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we've been talking about it this whole time.
Yeah.
About how if you don't align exactly the way the left wants you to align, you're going to be shunned. And you're going to be canceled. They're going to come at you on the internet. God forbid you're putting stuff out there where people can comment, because they're going to come at you for sure.
Yeah, there's an interesting topic of the president of my generation. When I'm in my 30s, 40s, president of my generation is going to have a previous history of Twitter, Facebook, all these things that are now going to be able to be brought up. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. But I personally, it's hard because I know it's hard to really formulate an opinion, because I know people who believe in the Black Lives Matter movement who are reasonable. Mm-hmm. But then I see these things of these just radical, people throwing Molotovs and doing it in the name of Black Lives Matter,
Yeah, but once again, how do you know they're part of that organization? How do we know that, right?
Do you think there's a bias within the media? Because CNN took three full days to write the story on. I don't remember you remember reading the story of the 5-year-old kid who got shot in the head by the black man?
Yes.
And same thing with the one girl who got ran over on the highway. That happened like a month ago. Mm-hmm. It was a black man. They didn't use his picture. They didn't mention that he was black. It was just, and I think it just goes within, and this is my personal opinion, I think mainstream media, CNN, all these other big things, they have that agenda and propelling this idea, and whatever goes against their idea, they don't want to shed light on.
Right. And that's, once again, just to reframe, because you're always using CNN as an example. Fox News.
And I brought that up with Matt, too. I brought that up.
They do it on both sides, and that's media. That's the culture, and that's the time we live in now. Denzel Washington, I think, said it best in the sense of get it out first. It doesn't matter if it's true, who it hurts, whatever. We just need it out first. We need to put it out, and it goes towards even biases, right? We don't care who it hurts. We're going to put out our bias. We're going to put out our narrative, and that's true. And we're in the age of information, and you need to do, like we said, you need to do your due diligence. You need to look up before you're out there soapboxing, telling people they're bad. You need to be checking yourself and making sure your information.
Go back to
is
influencing.
correct.
I don't think you should rely on one source.
Absolutely
of news.
not. Every time me and Matt have a discussion, and most of ours have been through text, so we lose a little bit of context. Yeah. He's always referring to me as some big, or what is it called? A mainstream media. He keeps referencing that to me. MSM or whatever he abbreviates it to. But I keep asking him, where do you think I get my information? I've never spoken to him about it. And I have other friends too that are conservatives and family members that I get into these arguments and the first thing they say, well, you're just getting all your information from mainstream media. Well, how do you know that? Have I ever told you where I get my information from? You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess it could be a correlation.
No, because this is what I'm saying. Fox News, all the right-wing mainstream media are just telling you how the other side of the aisle, mainstream media, is bad, right? Yeah. That's all they say is CNN is biased, MSNBC is biased, NBC is biased, ABC is biased. Everybody is biased, right? That's all they say. So that's the first line of questioning you get. Once again, you got to do your own research. You got to look at both sides. Hey, I listen to Ben Shapiro, and I look at InfoWars stuff, and I look at Young Turks stuff, the left wing, what I call the InfoWars for left wingers, those Young Turk guys or whatever. Like, you got to look at both. I get a lot of information from NPR, National Public Radio, which is really good, which is seen most of the time as a moderate news source. But yeah, you got to look at both sides, and you got to make a decision, or not decision, but you got to form your opinions on who you are as a person and what you believe in and what you believe is right. And once again, you're never going to align perfectly with people.
Yeah. And I think it's a weird place right now with a lot of young people doing the protesting and rioting. And I always hear this from, like, your opinion from when you were 20 is probably different to now.
Absolutely.
So are these people going to eventually 10, 20 years from now look back at what they did and just be like, oh, think differently? I think there's different context to it now.
Sure.
And for me, I think Trump becomes president, the riots are going to get worse. COVID's going to get worse. My personal opinion, I think COVID's definitely a political.
Well, it's definitely a tool. I don't think it's not real. I think it's real, but I think you should be concerned about it. I don't think you should be locking yourself in the basement.
But I think it's coming this election is going to be one of the biggest political stances.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think if Trump, and you see this with the media as well, misconstruing the numbers. Florida dropped their numbers by thousands. Oh, yeah. And the way they construct this data is just very faulty and unreliable.
Absolutely.
They tested plain swabs, and that came up positive.
Right. Listen, I take it serious enough to where, hey, you want me like, I don't consider a grocery store asking me to wear a mask an infringement on my constitutional right. You know, all these Karens and people on
I mean, I hate wearing masks, but I don't really have a problem.
Well, here's the deal. Is it going to stop you from going to get some groceries real quick? Or will you just like, whatever, put it on, go grab your groceries, grab them and leave. Yeah. Take it off, right? It's not a big deal. I think people are taking it far, they're taking it too far in the sense of like, dude, just put it on and go. There's no law again. They're not going to throw you in jail for it, but why be an asshole?
Yeah.
Is what I get down to it. But you're absolutely right. I've seen on both sides, I shouldn't say both sides, from both outlets. I've seen from like more right-leaning outlets and left-leaning outlets. The testing is astronomically flawed. Yeah. I mean, my own wife, my wife's grandma got tested positive. Then they retested her. She had a quarantine, had to retest her again. It was negative. And then retested it again, and it was positive. So it's like, what are we doing here? Like, how do these tests work? Or like, there are some things. Matt was exaggerating a little bit, but there are some instances where these people were already on their deathbed. They're in hospice. And then they, you know what I mean? Like, they pass away, they test them, and they had coronavirus, and they say, oh, well, that's coronavirus. Well,
death. Situation where there's a car accident.
Okay. I've never seen the actual stories or the actual data behind a car accident one. Yeah. That one I think is a little exaggerated. I've read several stories where these people they're in hospice. The doctor doesn't know when they're going to die. They're like, anytime they are going to pass away, their organs are failing. And then after the fact, when they pass away, they test them and they have positive for coronavirus. You can't say that that's a coronavirus death. Yeah. That person was already passing away. They were already dying. So I totally get that. The testing is ridiculous. And the one in Florida where they moved a decimal. They like moved a decimal on a thing. Me and my wife were reading the story. We're like, how can these people be so stupid? It was like, they made it 98 when it was really 9.8. And that is a huge difference. Huge difference of percentage. 9.8% to 98%. That is massively, stuff like that. So I don't trust any of that. All I can do is wash my hands, wear a mask when they want me to wear a mask, at the grocery store or whatever. When I'm around, we avoid crowds just to protect ourselves. I don't want to get sick, even though I know I'll survive or it won't do much. I don't want the flu. You don't want to go and like, when you have a
person, mono.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you don't want it. I mean, we can make out and, do all that stuff, but like, you don't want that stuff, right?
Depends on how hot she is.
Yeah, exactly. Or he, you know what I mean? So like, I totally get that. But yes, I agree. It's going to be a huge, huge tool in the whole political game. The heightened fear of it versus the you shouldn't be afraid at all, which I think Trump kind of alludes to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's I guess being a little bit off topic. What was your opinion? And this is more so happening when the lockdown first happened with humongous crowds protesting. Yeah, right. You can't open up your business or go to church or do these other things.
Absolutely. I think once again, it's hypocrisy at its best. We can't expect it. There needs to be a line that's drawn to where we just need to have citizens make the decision. You want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. If you want to open your business, open it. But let's work with these guidelines, like what they've done now, like plexiglass, social distancing, things like that. Open up. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's a fair point to say this. Granted, I don't think it should stop because your amendment rights, despite a pandemic, should be upheld. I don't think those people should be punished for it. But it's a fair point. It's a fair point to make, saying, hey, we can't do this, but we're going to go in these massive groups and protest. But I think your amendment rights trump all the other mandates and things. So
for me, I can't remember. I think it was Tim Dillon brought this up. When do you open things back up? You know, COVID's not going to go away. And what the average time to create a vaccine is 4 years, and we've developed one in 9 months.
It's getting close. I think we're going to have one soon.
Yeah. You know, how many people are going to take the vaccine? Granted, if the vaccine works, who's going to be that guinea pig?
Yeah.
And, you know, when do we just say, open things up? You know, when does that happen?
In my opinion, I think it needs to happen now.
In my opinion, I don't think the government shutdown should have happened regardless.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think, you know what? I loved the 600 of unemployment. That was amazing. That did wonders.
Yeah,
that
thanks
got
a lot.
this whole set.
Socialism at its best, right here.
But I loved it. But I did not agree. I don't think that we should have shut down everything. What I think, people who are immunocompromised, people who are older, give them the 600. Let them get on. Wait until we figure something out for them.
Yeah.
But for everyday people, you know, maybe put guidelines, mandates, but don't shut down their business. No. I think, I can't remember the percentage, but the majority of small businesses are not going to recover from this.
Oh no.
Not only that,
but
downtown, specifically places in cities where the riots are happening, what do they do now, you know?
Oh yeah.
Their place is broken into.
Look at downtown Tacoma. It's all boarded up, everything.
Yeah.
Still today, even though there aren't things going on. But because of COVID and the protests,
I don't know what is your opinion? What's going to happen a year or two from now with the economy, with America, with the way the riots are going? Right. For me, the same thing I told Matt. I think things are going to get worse before they get better. If Trump is president, things are going to get significantly worse, like socially, like with the riots and all this other stuff. There's rumors of like a civil war between, you know, the far left and then the right.
Right. I hear people talking about it all the time.
I think that is potentially could happen in the sense of, you see, do you follow the Daily War? I don't think it's civil war. Do you follow the Daily Wire?
Yeah.
They in particular.
I don't follow them, but
in particular they've been doing stories of Antifa walking into suburban neighborhoods, shouting for them to get out of their houses. I think once that becomes more mainstream, that's when you're going to see more of a pushback for the silent majority of people who, like for me, like I'm not really that politically, you know, involved, but if someone's walking down my street yelling at me to get out of the house, and, you know, I think these people who have their opinions, who just don't want to get involved, they don't want to speak out or anything, they don't want to lose their job or anything like that, those people are going to finally put their foot down and be like, I've had enough.
Well, I mean, the opposite of good isn't evil. Right?
I don't think, you know, two wrongs should make a right.
Indifference. Well, I'm making a point to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Indifference is the opposite of that. People like yourselves, not that it's bad, but people who just don't care enough to do it. The silent majority, as you say. If people come knocking on doors, demanding whatever the idea is, right or left, there's going to be a lot more dead people in the street. You know what I mean? You start going to people's houses and start messing with them there, it's going to be trouble, a whole lot of trouble. Where I see us in the next couple of years, obviously, I think is going to be vastly different, but not that different. Well, I shouldn't say vastly. It will be different depending on who wins the election, obviously. Yeah. That's going to be one. But yeah, where does it all end? If Biden and Harris win, are the right-wing people going to be out, you know, protesting and burning shit? I doubt it.
I don't think so.
Because that's just not how they roll.
Yeah.
You know, they might not roll up to the protest, but the right wing definitely rolls up to the polls, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. All these people need to put their money where their mouths are if they want any kind of difference on the left. But I think, in my opinion, back to your question, I think we need to open up. I think it needs to be a choice. People need to decide, hey, do I want to put myself at risk of getting sick and going and doing this? Or
I go to the movies all the time now.
Partaking into this, to this business or this, whatever they're selling, event, concert, whatever. I think it just needs to be a choice. And I think if you don't want to do it, you shouldn't be ridiculed for it. And you should be able to, like, for instance, I think if you are truly someone who is concerned about the virus and you work in a place where you're constantly seeing people, I mean, outside of servers, because servers you kind of have to, but like in an office or something, I think your business should be able to provide you a way to work remotely if possible.
I think
or limit your interaction if you're someone who is concerned about it. I think we should help those people who are concerned about it. But having lockdown, having mandates of how many people you can be around and how many people you can see and all that stuff, I don't think that's the answer. I think we're beyond that.
Yeah, do you think a lot of people were talking about when the lockdown first happened and people had to work from home, if the physical Monday meetings are going to exist?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Because, I think a lot of companies now realize that, man, we can get a lot of stuff done just virtually.
Right. And like with my wife, she works for Pierce County District Court. They've gone into where they're all splitting a day of the week, 2 days of the week, that they're gone. So like she works at home on Wednesdays and Fridays, and her other coworker, it's Thursdays and Tuesdays. And the other, so you're just minusing one person that needs to be there. Yeah. So you have less contact. And those are things we can do that aren't crazy and that aren't whatever. And once again, it needs to be a choice. Americans need to be able to say, you know what? I don't mind. I'm going to put myself at risk because I deem it, my right to go and do this thing or to go partake in this event or whatever. I think it needs to be a choice.
There's a part of the shutdown to make Trump look bad, like economy-wise?
Well, I don't think it's the shutdown itself, it's going to hurt anybody. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't matter.
I think if Obama was president today,
there was nothing Trump could do to make it better or, you know what I mean? Like to make it better. It's kind of like, I mean, you're a little young. I don't know how old you are, but you're
20.
a little young. So obviously you were barely born when 9/11 happened.
I was 1.
any president, everyone has a critique for George Bush. Every single person has a critique for George Bush during 9/11, blah, 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 blah. Hey, dude, that was an unprecedented event that happened. It wouldn't matter if it was a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, anybody in that position during 9/11 wouldn't know what to do.
Well, also, there's a conversation of did Bush coordinate it, but
I'm saying separating the conspiracy theories, which I don't think all of them are conspiracy. I think there's a lot of truth.
Why did Epstein have that picture in his house? That
exactly.
was weird.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying aside from just like this, I'm not gonna throw Trump under the bus and be like, well, he let the economy go to shit. No, he didn't. We had a global pandemic.
Yeah.
Any sitting president would have a shitty economy. It wouldn't matter if it was him. He couldn't do anything that would have made it better.
Obama was the Great Recession.
Exactly. And even then, once again, I've been fortunate in my life to where the recession and even this pandemic doesn't really affect me and my wife financially. It hasn't affected us in that sense. In fact, it probably helped because we're not spending as much money.
Yeah.
Because we're not out doing because we're music people, so we go to concerts and we do a lot of stuff like that.
Did you go Buenos Aires?
No, we
wanted to. But
we were gonna go to, like, for instance, My Chem was coming. We had primo tickets for that. Dashboard Confessionals coming. We had.
We're gonna Five Finger Death Punch.
No, I don't think we're. Well, were they a headlining show or were they?
There's a headlining in Tacoma Dome. I just wanted to go there for Ice Nine Kills, and then my sister likes I Prevail. God. You don't like Ice Nine Kills?
No, wow. I'm more of a punk. I'm an old school punk.
Good Charlotte.
Guy. Oh yeah, I like Good Charlotte.
They're not Sum 41.
Of course, yeah. I grew up on
the All American Rejects.
Oh yeah.
I like that old.
My all-time favorite band, if I had to choose a band that like mostly influenced me growing up, was AFI. AFI has always been
Miss Murder.
Well, yeah, that's part of their album.
The first time I heard that song was on Guitar Hero.
Yeah, and so like those are really. I'm more of the punk side. My wife is more of the metal side. So like Manson.
I think Manson,
Avenged Sevenfold, and
Marilyn Manson's been the one. Like I listened to him in middle school, and I've listened to him since then. So like other bands,
he's old, bro. He was.
Oh yeah.
He was obviously making music since the '90s.
A lot of people say he only got famous because he has popular cover songs. I think Columbine made him famous. If anything, like that's the thing that put his name on.
That put him out there for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you're in the, when you're in the scene, as they said when I was a kid, you knew about him. You knew about him because he was mainstream. First of all, anyone who's signed to a major label, you're going to know about him.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is like who's getting the most, especially in the 90s when the internet wasn't so prevalent. You didn't hear about small bands and stuff because there was no YouTube. There was no way to see them. You only knew about the people that you can see in the record store, which were only big label bands. Yeah. So, Manson and, we love Coheed. Coheed has been around a long time. Coheed and Cambria. Have you ever heard of them? They're a great band. You'd only hear those things, but Manson has always been at the top. Slipknot is a big one.
I was never a Slipknot guy.
I don't like Slipknot. I'm just using them as an example of metal. Like, Xana, my wife, she's more of a metalhead than me. I'm more of old school.
You don't like Pierce Savelle?
I do like. I like Pierce Savelle.
I'm not a fan of Pierce Savelle.
No, I like them. I like them, but they're just not like they're not my favorite band.
I don't know what it is about those. I don't know. Like
we totally went off.
I know, but I just want to say this one point.
No, it's all good.
Is that
I love music.
I just not a big. I don't know. Whenever I listen to them, I'm like, they have a good song here and there, but then like I saw them at Warped Tour. And their crowd is just like teens, like female teens. It's like it's almost like a boy band. Like I guess.
The girls love them.
Yeah, but like they stood there.
I worked
at
Hot Topic for 10 years. Okay, so that's how I met my wife at Hot Topic. She'd come in at the store.
Oh yeah, she got a Marilyn Manson tee.
Yeah, she was buying a Marilyn Manson t-shirt. So I've heard like the girls love them. Any good-looking boys that are in bands, they're gonna have that crowd, but that doesn't say they didn't have some good music.
Yeah, I get told I look like I work at Hot Topic.
Well, yeah,
I'm not.
They're not wrong.
I'm not a piercing or like tattoo guy, so it's like I don't know. For me that just doesn't appeal to me. Like I might, I might get a tattoo of like a spider, like something little. But
honestly, I tell people all the time, and they kind of lose their mind. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't have any tattoos. And it's only because when I was a kid, there was maybe a handful. And I mean, by handful, I mean like maybe 5 people in my entire high school that had tattoos.
Oh.
Because it was just back then it was a counterculture, right? Like when you had tattoos, it didn't mean something super deep, but you were
rebelling.
You were rebelling. It was a counterculture. You weren't a conformist. You were openly expressing yourself. And now every soccer mom at the store, you go to the courthouse, even the clerk of recorder lady who's this professional has a neck tattoo. Like it's just so common. It means nothing anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so if I could go back, because now when people like. I'm sure you get it all the time when people see you. They're like, "Oh my god, you don't have a tattoo?"
Yeah.
Same thing. My wife, Xana,
we're just not even being interested.
Exactly. Like my wife, who doesn't have any tattoos either. People are, "Oh my god, you don't have a tattoo?" It's more of a counterculture today to not have tattoos than it is to have them. So I would go if I could go back. I would take them away. But once you dive in, there's no going back.
Yeah, tattoo, and I know I've never had one, but I have heard they are expensive.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want a decent one, you get what you pay for with tattoos. This is what I tell people. Hey, if you go looking and you find a deal, don't go there. You know what I mean? Do not go there. Unless you know them personally and it's a trusted artist. But back when I was younger, it used to be $75 an hour type stuff. But nowadays, the last tattoo I got was probably like $130 an hour. Ooh. Right. So the inflation, has been going up over the years, and they're not cheap.
Yeah.
For a well formulate, a good tattoo, it's not cheap. You can probably find them cheaper, but good luck with the artistic part of it.
I think the only time I'd necessarily be okay with a tattoo is when it's like for example, when Avengers Endgame got done filming. All that cast, they've been doing the same sets and same films for so long. They all like tattooed.
Oh yeah,
got a similar tattoo each other. I think something like that I would be more okay with.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But as for like if I was gonna like someone said, "Hey, I'll spot you. I'll get you this. Get whatever you want, whatever the price tag, wherever you want." I don't know. Nothing. Like I can't justify something like. I like Resident Evil, the Umbrella logo.
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to feel about that when I'm 70,
Yeah, I mean, you roll the dice.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I don't know how much time we have on this, but when I was younger, I was very much, just to give you my story, a Christian. I thought I was a Christian. I was raised in the church. I was very much involved in the church and everything. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm ever going to get tattoos, they got to be religious.
Mm-hmm. You have a religious tattoo now?
Well, I got the Last Supper on my forearm. I have a Sacred Heart. This used to be a cross right here.
Oh, the anchor.
I covered it up with the anchor. I have a giant Jesus portrait on my arm.
Oh, you like cops? What are you talking about? I see a pig right there.
Yeah, exactly. I got the burning bush from the book of Exodus, and I got Revelations 8 and 13 on my legs. I always told myself when I was younger, oh, I'll get these because it'll always mean something to me. That's what I told myself. And I remember distinctly telling people that, oh yeah, when I get tattoos, they're religious because it'll always mean something. Well, guess what? I'm no longer a Christian. I don't believe in those things. And now they don't mean that kind of thing to me anymore, right?
Yeah.
Your mind's going to change no matter what.
Yeah.
Get something that's tasteful, that's artistically pleasing to the eye. And on top of that, get something that you like. Don't worry about what other people like.
Yeah.
Whatever, get something you like. If you want to get a tattoo,
Yeah.
I'd tell people don't get them. And if you're going to get them above the sleeve, where you can't see them. Get them on your chest or on your upper arms or whatever. Get them like that,
Yeah.
That's my advice. And it's funny because they look at me and they're like, you're telling me not to get tattoos and you're covered in tattoos? I'm like, hey.
I mean, that's a prime example.
Tell me the truth.
That's a prime example. Like, I did the deed. I'm here telling you now afterwards. Don't
You know what I feel like? I tell people this. When like a white supremacist person is in prison and he gets all these like swastikas and shit, but then, he changes his life and comes out and now he's a dude. Even though he doesn't believe in that stuff anymore, he's covered in all the shit. That's how I feel. I feel like...
How do you feel about the reform of like that example, white supremacists? They're like, you know what? I don't believe in that stuff anymore. With today's culture, your past is what you are today,
right?
No matter what. Something you did when you were, 13,
right.
20, 25 right. is now your identity for when you're 34, And I don't agree with that at all, I'm pretty sure you can look at back when you were 20, look back at some stuff you did and like, ugh.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Cringy.
So today, and, I don't think people should be labeled as what they were.
No. And once again, we spoke about it earlier, this cancel culture, I believe in redemption. I believe people, and I tell this to young people all the time, and everyone like in the office always tells me I'm like the motivational speaker because I'm always giving them these words of affirmation, but it's true. 18 to 20 to 28 is going to be so vastly different in your life, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
Even if you live at home the whole time, even if you've had the same job, your mindset and what you think about yourself and who you are and how you view the world is going to be so vastly different between 18 and 28. How can we possibly hold anyone accountable for the things they said or did when they were younger, as long as they've recognized that if they were bad, that they're bad, right? As long as you've recognized that it was bad or that you were misinformed or that you made a mistake, how can we ever hold that against those people? How can we hold that against anyone?
Yeah.
It
is interesting to see,
But that's our society.
Yeah.
That's our society.
Like, you see these young TikTok celebrities getting canceled or, they're kids, What do you expect from them? And
that stuff, we could look at... Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, it's okay.
We can look at it even beyond that. We can take the cancel culture of pop culture and things like that and realize that, they might not have any more followers. They might not be able to get a check from YouTube anymore. But let's look at what we're doing a cancel culture in our own real political society. If you're a felon and you go or you commit a crime and it's a felony, you go to prison and serve your time, but when you get out, you're always a felon. And you don't get to live in certain housing, you don't get to have certain jobs because you're a felon, you don't get to in some states voting rights are removed when you're a felon. Why is this person that spent their time, your sentence was 10 years, you did your 10 years, why are we going to punish them for the rest of their life? Why do they have to be punished for the rest of life because of a mistake they made when they were a kid or when they were young or 20 years ago?
Do you think something should stick if it's like a reoffense? Like, let's say they do a crime, they go to jail, they do their time, and then they go back to jail for doing something similar or the same exact thing. Do you think a thing should stick, a form, like a felony should stick? Because you're going to have those people
we need to reform what our punishments are. If our punishments are life punishments, then what's the point of us giving them some kind of sentence? You know what I mean? Like a punishment needs to be what it is. If you do this crime and you have this sentence, that is your penance. That is what you paid the price for doing what you did. Your sentence is your thing. You shouldn't have to pay for that, especially when you committed the crime as a juvenile, because that's really the argument. Because right now there's a ton of juvenile sentenced lifers in prison.
Really?
Oh, yeah. There's like over 100,000 people in our prison system today that committed a crime as a juvenile who are serving life in prison. Should we hold them, despite how heinous their crime was, should we have them longer than what is expected? Like, just like we were talking about the stuff before, when their brain wasn't even fully developed.
Yeah.
We should punish them for the rest of their life. Now, don't get me wrong. Should they spend all good for murder, for instance, like the worst crime, right? Murdering someone. Sure, you don't just let them out and say, you were a kid. Give them some time. 20 years, whatever it is, right? Make sure you're doing the things to to get that person ready to join society and know, like, hey, you fucked up.
I also think
you're paying the price for it.
There should be a better rehabilitation system within prison, because
there isn't one. A better one. There needs to be one.
It's just you just get locked in a cage. You have to follow a schedule, and you do that for a certain amount of time, and then you're out. There is no, let's identify what you did, let's identify the problem, and let's figure out a solution for it.
Well, yeah, and the big thing too is just like the point you just made is reoffenders. I mean, that is a huge, huge problem in our judicial system is reoffenders. People who get out of jail and go out and do the exact same crime again and go back to jail. But why are they doing that? Where are we losing them? Is it because when we send them out, we give them $10 and say, good luck? No, that's what they do. They literally give you 10 or 20 bucks and a bus pass if you need to go somewhere. Here you go. You're out. No resources, no counseling to get you reaffirmed back into society, no jobs. Obviously, what you just said, when you're a felon, you can't get shit jobs. You're going to get paid shit, right? My brother, he's a felon. One of my brothers, I got more than one felon in my family. One of my brothers is a felon, right? He was doing his very best to change his life. He got out of jail. He's working construction. Which isn't the best job, but still a decent paying job. You know, he had some contacts. We had a family friend who was a superintendent, got him a job doing his thing. Because he was a felon, he couldn't live in a nice apartment in a nice neighborhood. Where did they put it? Where could he get an apartment? In the fucking ghetto where we're from, where all your neighbors are gang members, drug dealers, drug users. You're putting them back in a cycle. Putting them back in an environment where they're going to offend again.
Yeah.
How can we possibly expect them to change their life if we can't get them to get out of that area? You know, get this, in that neighborhood, just to give you some insight, in my brother's neighborhood, my nephew was over, who's a grown man. My nephew's grown. He's in his 20s. He fired a shotgun by accident while cleaning it in the house, in the apartment. Fired a 12-gauge shotgun. Do you think the cops came? Do you think anyone batted a fucking eye? And if you've heard a shotgun fire off, especially in a small room, it is loud. I mean, extremely loud. No one called the cops. No one came by, nothing. That's how this neighborhood was so used to crime and violence and things like that. No one even, and I was like, bro, you need to get out of here. You need to move out of here. You need to go find, and eventually he did, he found like a roommate. He was like renting a room from one of his coworkers that lived out in the suburbs, and he's been able to stay out of trouble. He's been able to stay out of prison and all those things, but you got to be able to get out of those cycles. And once again, my brother had more networking and more resources than most people.
Yeah.
The average Joe is going to go right back to everything. They can't find a decent job. They don't have a car. They can't get to places like my brother did. They can't afford their own apartment. They have to live wherever with their parents or people they know. And what's easier to do, going and working at Burger King or selling drugs and making money and being able to buy your kids Christmas presents and things like that. We need to break that cycle of.
Do you think that's possible though? Like, I mean, I feel like
I
with this
think it
conversation, how long have you heard that conversation through your lifetime now?
Oh, for years. But
Yeah.
the big thing about it is how many people are in prison because of drug offenses. That's the key. The war on drugs historically has put more people in jail than any other thing in the history of the United States of America. And until we tackle that, yeah, she's helped. And Trump pardoned that woman that Kim Kardashian helped, which is obviously a good thing. People like to forget about what he did. But once again, that was only one person. Who cares, right? But it was good for that person. It's great. I'm sure she's going to vote for Trump. He released her. Why not, right? What I'm saying is, just for example, here in Washington, how can you fathom that it's possibly fair that me and you can drive right down the street? You're 20, so you might not be able to. We could, if you were 21, we could drive right down the street and buy pretty much as much weed as we possibly wanted to smoke, right?
Yeah.
It's completely legal. No one could do anything about it. But right now, today, are thousands and thousands of people in prison, not jail, not county jail, in prison for marijuana. How can that possibly make sense?
Yeah.
I was totally against the legalization of marijuana. I helped, on my very small platform, I was always against it. Not because I'm against weed or I'm some prude who's against recreational drugs. No, not at all. It's because we shouldn't be legalizing something until we get those people out of jail. Why should these people be spending their time in jail for something that this person is doing freely now? Yeah. It just doesn't make sense. So if you get rid of the war on drugs, people spending huge amounts of time in prison for very small offenses, you're going to lose a lot of those people in the jail, and it'll free up a ton of resources to help the people who actually need the help. The people that have committed heinous crimes or who have done things that need therapy, that need education, that need all these things. If you get rid of all these frivolous mandatory sentences for drugs, people going to prison for 25, 30 years for a first offense drug charge that was nonviolent, all kinds of things. If you get rid of all of them, you're going to have all the resources in the world available for the people who actually need them.
Yeah. Are you familiar with FPS Russia?
The gun dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went to prison for 2 months for marijuana charges. They even hit him with the distribution charge because at his house, he let his girlfriend smoke some of his weed.
Where's he from? Or where does he live?
I don't know the exact state, but I know it's not legal there. So they hit him with 2 months. But again, he's more of a well-off individual, so he probably had lawyers to
absolutely
reduce that to 2 months.
It's not only a racial thing. I think it truly is. And once again, it's not something that is some radical idea. I'm not just throwing the race card. I think there's numbers behind it that shows the racial disparities in sentencing for drugs. But it's on top of that a social economic issue. Certain people, even people of color who can afford a lawyer, is going to get them a better deal, is going to get them off or get them whatever. This average person, public defenders in today's time, don't get me wrong, I think they all, in their heart of hearts, I think they're there to help people. But how can you possibly expect this person who is supposed to defend you, right? I'm the prosecutor. I work for the DA. Your lawyer is the public defender. Me and him or her are buddies. We work together all the time. You think that that person's going to be able to defend you wholeheartedly to get you the best deal when me and your lawyer are going to lunch every day? Hell no. You need someone that has no connection. We need to get rid of the public defender system and realize that going and doing what they do in a lot of areas, in Texas they do it, in some other states too, what they do is they allow you to go find a private lawyer and then the state pays them. So instead of having this, public defender box of people who are overworked, underpaid, and don't know they have so many cases on their table that they can't really look into your case. The state allows you to go hire, hey, Victor, he's a lawyer, I'm going to hire him. And the state will pay you. Then you can find the private investigator to help with your case. You can have a paralegal helping with the research to get you off because of some precedented law that was passed 40 years ago, right? Public defenders don't have those resources. So it's a racial thing and it's a socioeconomic thing. And with that said, you're more likely to be in poverty if you're a person of color. And that's what makes it a racial thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough thing. Are you on the side of all drugs should be legal?
No.
I think there's an example. I don't remember which country they did it in, but they pretty much made all drugs legal. They had a heroin place for people to go.
Yeah.
I'd rather have someone shoot clean heroin than whatever they're buying off of someone who they don't know what they got it from.
Once again, go ahead. Sorry.
And what they found out is kind of like with the prison thing. When they would go to these places, they would also just kind of have like a counseling thing of just like the majority of the people on the streets have an illness, some form of mental illness. I think there's a percentage out there of people who maybe lost their job.
Right.
But there's people. When you see someone shouting at nothing that's there,
right.
That's not somebody who's mentally in the right state to have a job or anything like that. Those people need help. Where's their resource for help?
But I think our resources are put into places where they don't need it. I.e., once again, when it comes to, if we're talking about prison, there are countless thousands and thousands and thousands of prisoners that shouldn't be in prison. That's the fact. That's the bottom truth. So when you relieve the prison system of all those people, how many thousands of dollars, millions of dollars will we have to put towards people who actually need it? I'm not for open legal, like Amsterdam type stuff. I don't even know what Amsterdam does. That's just a common country. That's a common place to use as an example. I'm not down for that. But once again, let's talk about the numbers. Big tobacco kills over 150,000 people a year. Are we illegalizing that? Are we bringing them down? Are we making cigarettes illegal?
Not only that, alcohol as well.
Once again, that's my next point. Alcohol. Thousands of people die a year from alcoholism and the results of that, i.e. drunk driving, killing an innocent person, whatever it is. Are we making that illegal?
And so but psychedelics are illegal, which...
Right. Once again, let's keep it going. Why should we ban marijuana? Why should we ban mushrooms? Things that are grown, you know what I mean? Like things that aren't necessarily man-made. I mean, they're hydroponics. They're created because we mess with the genes of the plant to make them more potent and things like that. But what I mean is they're not any worse. In fact, I think they're probably better than alcohol and tobacco. We'll be the biggest hypocrites in the world if we don't. And I think it's going to happen in the next presidency. I really do. I think they're going to legalize weed across the board.
Well, it doesn't matter with who? No.
I'm saying it doesn't matter.
Trump or Biden, is going to be legalized?
I think it's going to utilize. I think one would be stupid to think, Trump, he's a businessman, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly a good one, even though I don't think he's a good businessman. But if he's a good businessman, he'll realize how many millions of dollars can we make if we just legalize weed. If we start taxing these people, we'll be able to get that money, right? We'll be able to garnish that income. Those aren't any worse than tobacco and booze. If we're not going to go after those people who have had decades and decades of lobbyists and things giving money to politicians, then why should we go after weed or shrooms? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why should we? Now, once again, cocaine, meth,
the fun stuff,
the fentanyl, those are some heavy hitters, bro.
Yeah.
You go smoke weed for the first time, you ain't gonna die. You go drink a beer unless you drink and drive, you're not gonna die. You smoke a cigarette, you're not gonna die that day. You might die. It might take the last 10 years off your life, but you're not gonna die that day. You do cocaine for the first time and you do it wrong, you're gonna die. You do fentanyl, obviously we've had some stars die from it.
Yeah.
You're gonna die. Heroin, all those kinds of things. So I don't think it should be a free-for-all, but I think we should call a spade and realize weed isn't any better or worse than tobacco.
Yeah.
Or booze. So yeah, go for it.
There's also a big thing of, I think a big problem that plays in with the drug problem is opioids.
Absolutely.
People are just being overprescribed them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't understand. And I think also with my generation, when I was growing up in school, middle school is around middle school, beginning of high school is when you started seeing everybody have iPhones, all smartphones and everything. So I was in that transitional period. Elementary school, it's like, you kind of see someone with like a flip phone or something.
Right.
Middle school, flip phones, some smartphones. High school, it's just standard.
Right.
My freshman year, I think it was my freshman year of high school, we all got iPads. That's
right. The school provided them for you. Right? Yeah.
And not only that, but my generation, I think a little bit even before that, if your kid's super wild, throw them on Ritalin. Throw them on, they have ADHD. Oh, you're feeling a little bit down and depressed. Here's some pills to make you ease off that. Now, I'm not saying antidepressants are bad. I think they do help people, but I think solving the problems of what make you depressed
exactly
is going to help you more than taking a pill and just
absolutely
alleviating that emotion from you.
I think there's two things that I think go into it. One, like we've said before, we're in the information age. When I was a young kid, if you got bullied at school, which still happened then, I think in fact, it might have been worse back then because they could get away with a lot more. But when I went home, it stopped.
Yeah.
I didn't have someone hounding over me, making me feel like shit, making me feel less than. But because we live in this information age, because every single Tom, Dick, and Jane has a computer in their hand, not only do they get it when they're at school or whatever, when they leave school, social media, they're getting it on that. So there's I know a lot of these right-wing people, you guys say soy boys and things like that. And
I heard that term from Matt.
Matt uses that term. And it's funny that he says that because you guys are the generation of soy boys. So it's funny for him to use that. Like that term wasn't around when I was a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there was no such thing. But what I mean by that is like he makes fun of those people for being so sensitive and blah, blah, blah. But you have to understand the heightened interaction. Like I said, when I left home from school, there was no bullies except for my older brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was no bully there to keep pushing me down and making me feel terrible. Nowadays, we can't get off of these social media. We can't do it. And we've had some pretty negative ramifications from that, right?
It is interesting to see where social media is going to go from here because it's a weird, I post stuff that I do. I'll post my photography on Facebook. I'll share stuff. I don't necessarily write up a post and post anything, but there's so many people. Like I follow Variety, CNN, Daily Wire. I see all those different things on my Facebook feed, New York Post. And you look in the comments and these grown adults arguing in an online form.
Right.
I don't have a Twitter, but I'll go on Twitter whenever someone gets canceled and stuff to see what people say.
Same.
And I'm just like, stuff that gets debunked. Chris Adela, there's a lot of stuff you can say about that whole situation, but where'd those girls go? Like the girl ended up deleting her Twitter account and all this other stuff. He provided all this other extra stuff. Justin Bieber is a good example because he provided receipts, all this other stuff with the sexual harassment or whatever he got accused of. There are still people to this day who spout at the top of the mountain, Justin Bieber's a rapist. If you follow him, I'm going to unfollow you and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, where are we going towards in a society where if you prove your innocence or if you get even an accusation of anything, there's going to be a group of people that hold that belief firm to their chest. It's just
it's another byproduct of the age of information and too much information.
And I think
what are the negative effects of too much information? And these are some of those.
Yeah, and I think going back to the opioids, like I don't really. I never grew up. I never grew up taking any form of medication.
Same.
And it's weird because my generation is, if you were really hyper as a kid, you got thrown on ADHD pills, all this other stuff.
Sure.
If you're you have ADHD, you take these pills all the time. I think it's Adderall, right? You take Adderall for ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
If you are depressed now, let's say the ADHD pill is making you a little bit depressed. You take an antidepressant. Now you can't. Now you have trouble sleeping. Now you take this pill to help you go to sleep. Now you have a lack of an appetite. Now you have to take these pills to help you start eating. It's just
With that said, the first thing, this is what I tell people, and I've said this to people who are my family members, who are everybody, and I'm not one to say I'm some health nut or whatever. I'm not obviously looking. I'm overweight and things like that. But if the first thing your doctor tells you isn't, like, say you're depressed, right? You go to your doctor, I'm depressed, or I feel down, whatever. If the first thing your doctor tells you is, here's some pills, you need to find a new doctor.
Yeah.
The first thing our doctors in the medical field in general need to be saying is, okay, you feel this way. What's your diet and exercise look like?
That plays a big part in your mood.
Huge part.
Yeah.
And it's baffles me that doctors do this, because that is backed by science.
But then you're fat shaming.
Get out there and exactly. Get out there and get active and start doing something. Then once you're doing this much exercise and you've changed your diet in this way, you're not eating junk all the time, blah, 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 and you're still depressed. Okay, well, let's look at the chemicals now and let's figure out something that works for you, right?
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, if they truly change it, they won't need those pills. Mm-hmm. That's the problem, especially with Americans, is we all want, and I'm guilty of it too. We all want a quick fix. We all want everything to be so convenient that it's just there. Take this pill, you're going to be great.
I think that plays into the whole idea of, you graduate from college, you have 4 years of college debt, you expect, now I deserve a job now,
Right.
And I can't remember his name, but he talks about, I brought this up with Matt, he's working a construction job. He has guys going over there who have 4-year degrees working construction jobs because they can't find a job in what they, went to school for.
Right. Absolutely. And
now they expect, capitalism is against me, so now we need a more, universal.
Yeah.
And we need universal income. We need all this other stuff.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You need to be, once again, it's all in the person, just like what you guys were, some liberal arts major,
lesbian dance theory.
Yeah, lesbian dance theory. Hey, you choose your destination.
Yeah.
You pick a place or a format that there's not a lot. You got to do your research. You got to look at, okay, what's going on? What's happening? Me, I want to be an educator. I know they get paid like shit.
I have a friend, Jeremy, he wants to be an elementary
school
teacher.
You know what I mean? Like, I know they get paid like shit, right? But I'm willing to deal with those ramifications going forward. Why? Because I know there's a shortage of teachers. I know there's a shortage of male teachers. I know there's a shortage of male teachers of color. So I know I'm not going to have a problem finding a job.
Or just not a radical thinker.
Yeah, exactly. I know I'm not going to have a problem finding a job, right? Yeah. But I've done the research enough. You can't just pick up ancient, Peruvian pottery and think that's the ticket, right? Yeah. And it goes into that kind of springboards into a lot of stuff, with the left, like with college, for instance. How, women, the pay gap situation, right? Women okay, well, let's look at the data. How many women are going into fields that yield a high paying job?
Or just a high risk
Very
of being
little.
hurt.
Or not just, I'm saying engineering, science, and medical. And when I mean medical, I mean doctorate, right? How many women go into those fields? Who's stopping them? No one's
Yeah.
You can sign up. You can do whatever.
Well,
you want.
the white cis man in the business suits, not letting him get the job because they don't have big enough boobs.
No, they're not giving them the job because there's not enough of them. If all the applicants were females, don't you think they would hire a female? Or are they going to go find the one male?
Not
of
only
course
that,
not.
but if women got paid less, wouldn't you think the employers would hire women because they don't have to pay them as much?
Exactly. A true capitalist.
Yeah.
A true capitalist would know that he could pay him less. No, I think there's flaws in that theory. But once again, it goes to the point of what are you choosing to do? What are you deciding to pursue? You look at Matt. Matt's smart for all intents and purposes. He's a smart guy. He's quitting school. He's doing the insurance things, selling insurance, whatever, because he finds that rewarding and he's content in the sense of, oh, I can do this without going to college.
Yeah.
For instance, for me, I know to this right now, I guarantee you that if you gave me a job out of a school right now, I could go teach the class. I think you would agree with that. I think most people who know me, who know my intellect, who know who I am, could be like, yeah, you can get a textbook, read it, and teach that to a classroom. I bet I could do it. But I can't do that unless I jump through these certain hoops, right? If I didn't have to go to college to be a teacher, do you think I would be in college paying for it? Of course not, right? I would go and be a teacher if I wanted to be a teacher, if that's what the case was. I'm only doing it because I have to get to my end result. So if you're not happy with that, you need to make a better decision on what field you're going into. If you're not happy with a job because there's no lesbian dance theory jobs, hey, you shouldn't have chose that. And your advisors around you, your parent, whoever's around you in your bubble, your circle of friends, should have been telling you, hey, dummy.
That would hurt their feelings, though.
Go get a job. You know what I mean? Well, that's another problem in itself.
And there's a big conversation about how, today when you go into college and you get this degree and you can't find a job, but the college teaches you that, it's capitalism, it's society is the reason why you're not.
Do they though? I don't think that's true.
Well, no. What I'm talking about is the college itself. Like what?
Yeah, but I don't think a college.
When you get a lesbian dance theory degree, do you think your professor's going to tell you you're not going to be able to find a job in this? And it's not our fault. It's the world's fault. You're not.
I don't think that's the truth. In my experience, and I've gone to 1, 2, 3 colleges now. Mm-hmm. I went to 4. I went to college right out of high school. Just like normal. I went to another community college after I left there for a little while. Then I went to Pierce, and now I'm going to UW. I've never had an experience of a teacher or a professor telling me how Matt says this whole victim thing, oh, everyone's a victim. I've never had a professor tell me it's because of the world or it's everyone's out to get you. I think if those people are victim, if they have that mentality, that comes from home. That comes from their environment, from home, and not their education. I think, now don't get me wrong, are there liberal biases in the sense of like, what's okay to say and what's not okay to say? That kind of liberal biases in college? Sure. But I don't think there's this, go blame the world, because most universities and the university I've gone to and the schools I've gone to, they want you to be a part of the world. They want you to go out and be part of the world. And your success lies with that. And someone who's lesbian dance theory, I'm sure would network with their teacher and say like, hey, how did you get this job? Where did you go? Oh, you interned in Bali at this dance studio. Okay, I'm going to look into that. Go find, you know what I mean? They're all going to do their thing. I don't think the institution is creating this bias of, you blame the world for you not being successful. I don't think that's true. In my experience, I don't think it is.
And in particular, though, do you think within universities, I guess, what do you think the future of universities is going to be with this liberal bias? If I went to the University of Seattle, University of Washington, Seattle, mm-hmm. and I was, I think I remember reading an article, I think it was a year or two ago. I brought it up with Matt, how they wanted to ban the Republican group. Yeah. How does that make me feel being more conservative going into that kind of environment? I can't
Well, you can.
I can,
that's
but
the
it
thing.
doesn't mean...
Here's the thing, and I told you this before. You need to be strong enough in your own identity and your own beliefs to withstand influence from outside people. I know countless people. Like I told you, I grew up my whole life in the church.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up all the stuff. I know countless people that discourage their children to go to college because they know once they go get in the secular world that they're going to come back and they're going to have some doubts about their religion, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's healthy personally. I think that's fine. You need to question what your parents have told you your whole life because their life is not your life, right? I get that. But I know countless people who discourage college for that. Why not instill in your kid strong enough beliefs to where they can be like, yeah, I can hear this other opinion, but I'll still hold my own. I might hear some new information that might make me think differently, but I'll still have my own beliefs. That's what we need to do. We need to stop focusing on, the college and universities are this liberal machine. Well, if you're not such a cream puff that's going to mold to whatever they tell you to mold to, stand up for yourself.
I think the problem with that, though, is what you've seen at Evergreen College. Oh, did you see that?
Evergreen's on another level. I don't know what you're talking about in particular, but I know how their school works.
What's his name? Sam Weinstein. I don't remember the professor's name, but where they had they wanted no only black people to go to school that day, no white people.
Oh yeah.
And he pretty much just said, "I'm not going to partake in that." And there was just this mob. There was people literally standing out front of the college with bats, like looking for him.
Right. No. I remember reading that.
And he's liberal.
Not good.
He's liberal.
Right.
You know, if he's liberal and he has that idea, what is it to me when I'm...
You and Matt kind of have the problem of highlighting these those aren't the majority. That's not the majority of universities. That's not happening in a majority of universities.
I don't think it's happening in the majority of universities.
The dude from PragerU, Will Witt, right? You ever listen to him?
It sounds like a really familiar name.
Anyway, he's always on the street making things. He went to the University of Colorado, same school my wife went to, same time frame my wife went to. He talks about how terrible you couldn't say anything you can do. You would be just like all the things that you're saying about that. Not to say it wasn't true, but my wife went there and didn't have the same experience. She witnessed people expressing the different opinions and weren't ridiculed, weren't failed for no reason. Because that was another thing. It was like, if you question your professors, they're going to fail you. It's like, okay, there's definitely avenues that might be true where they might not give you a grade you deserved. But there's definitely avenues where you can question that and get it changed, right? Like, we can't take these outliers and make that the example. I think overall, institutions of higher education are doing a betterment for society because if we educate our people, our citizens, therefore they're going to go out and have better jobs. Statistically, they'll have better jobs. Statistically, they'll make more money, and statistically, they'll spend more money, which means the economy will get better. So I'm not going to say, the higher education is a liberal machine. Hey, if you're rooted in your belief, if you have strong enough beliefs in yourself and your identity, it won't matter what they say, right? Yeah. That's my answer to that. Be a stronger person. Don't let them control you.
And I think that's good in and of itself. But for me personally, like I said before, I'm not really that politically involved, other than within freedom of speech. I do have my beliefs and whatnot, but when it comes to the college environment, I just kept to myself, mainly just because I just didn't want the interaction of conflict per se because I knew me, Matt is more of an outspoken person about, pro-Trump and all this other stuff. But me, I know that my beliefs are in the minority a bit when it comes to the college environment. And I think a lot of other people who share my similar beliefs, who also go to the college, probably are more contained about their beliefs as well. I think where the problem lies, and Matt brought it up too, if Michelle Obama spoke at Pierce, no one would have a problem. No one would be protesting it. Ben Shapiro came to Pierce College. I think there would be, you would see a little bit more of a pushback.
That's totally true. right?
Yeah.
But once again, we can't take the outliers, bro. We can't send Ben Shapiro or Milo, whatever Yiannopoulos, to UC Berkeley, the most liberal of liberal places, and be like, let's go see what happens. We all know what's going to happen, right? You can't take that and label the entire higher education system as a liberal machine. What if they went to Nebraska, University of Nebraska? Do you think he'll get the same results? I highly doubt that. You go to CSU in the state of Colorado, Colorado State University. If you send him there, will they get the same result as going to CU Boulder? Probably not, because it's a liberal community versus a conservative community. Of course not. You can't use that as an entire idea of what higher education is. Once again, I think for the majority of state universities across the country, free speech will be upheld and people will be able to do their things. Yes, there will be some outliers where these students who are completely, in my opinion, out of line, and the administration should stand with the Constitution and say, this person is brought here by this organization of students and they want to hear what he has to say. We're not forcing you to go to it. We're not forcing you to listen to it. We're not forcing you to do anything. They're organizing it for them. You go for it.
I think you're correct. But something that I would bring up is, in particular, and I don't know, I brought this up with Matt Ice Poseidon. He went to college campuses, got the police called on him because he just walked around asking people. Like he's more of a comedic guy. Mm-hmm. He does stuff for the
reaction,
yeah,
for the clip.
So he would just walk around. How many genders are there? And then he would be like, "There's a penis and a vagina," and then like they'd get in a discussion. Cops got called on him. They said, "Hey, this is their safe space. You can't go against our ideas." And Pierce College in particular also had those kind of, not necessarily that in that extremity, but the discrimination, or you can't be transphobic or anything like that. Granted, I'm not like saying, but if I go against the idea of like, listen, I don't think anyone should be able to transition. I think it's more of like a mental illness. It's 50% suicide rate. When do you how do you normalize something like that? There's a penis and a vagina. How do you mainstream that? I'm saying things that would be labeled as
right. What I'm saying is, when you're saying these things, you need to be able to be strong enough to back it up. If those police officers came up to me and did that, I would obey what they said, but then I would go to my lawyer, file a lawsuit against that PD and against that school, because it's unconstitutional for them to stop you from utilizing your freedom of speech on a public campus. That's what you have to do. Is that instant gratification for you? Probably not.
No.
You would want the cops to come and defend you and be like, hey, sorry, this is public property. He can say what he wants. That's what their answer should have been, especially of people being a person who's supposed to defend the law, right? But when you don't even know the law yourself, how are you going to defend it? And that's my argument against cops, not to go back to it, but that's my argument against cops. They don't even know the law themselves. So you need to be able to deal with those kinds of things. For Pierce College, same thing. If you were to go in there and say something and you're not inciting violence, you're not calling out for people to go get hurt, you are free to say whatever you'd like. Now, if the administration took steps to censor your First Amendment right, I would say get a lawyer and file a lawsuit against that institution.
Yeah.
That's the way we have to do it. You got to understand, I can agree with you in the sense of there's probably a lot of liberal kids, especially in your generation, in universities right now who are quick, to judge you and jump on the SJW bandwagon quick. But you got to be able to combat that. If you consciously know, hey, I'm saying an opinion that is not liked by the majority of my fellow students, you got to be prepared for the consequences. You got to be prepared for the pushback, and I would be right there with you. I would be at the thing saying, hey, I think this guy's a dumbass, but I also think he has the right to say what he wants, right? Yeah. I would defend that. I would defend a KKK rally. I would defend a Nazi party rally. Hey, they have a First Amendment right as American citizens to do that. We have to do that. What I can do is organize my own rally saying these guys are assholes. We shouldn't fucking listen to them. And that's what I'll do, right? That's the only answer to it. There's no reason for violence or banning or censorship when it comes to public space. That's the bottom line.
I agree with that. Is there any last words you want to say?
Oh, man. Thanks for having me on. I'd love to have one with Matt. We're
going to have to set that up.
But no, man, it's great. Keep doing what you're doing.
Sweet. Thank you. And that was episode 6 or 7. I don't know.